Hello, everybody. Hello, welcome. This is super exciting. I love when I have a client who's willing to share the behind the scenes. So I've got Kate here. In a moment, I'm going to let her introduce herself more fully. But Kate's got a new book that just came out, and she had hundreds of people involved in the production of this book and being quoted and interviewed. And so she's like, her book launch, her virtual book launch party is like mega. And so she thought, I need some help. So we're going to talk about why she decided she needed help, what kind of help thought she was looking for, what kind of help she ended up getting, and how you might think about this for the events happening in your life. Kate, thank you so much for being here. Share with us who you are and this book that you created.
Oh, Robbie, it's so cool to hang out with you. Thank you. So I'm Kate Colbert. I am best known as a marketing professional who helps organizations figure out how to be meaningfully different in the minds of their customers. So I do a lot of market research and brand work, and am somewhat known for a book I wrote in 2014 called Think Like a Marketer: How a Shift in Mindset Can Change Everything for Your Business. And since that moment to now, I've gone back to my roots a little bit. I do a lot of the research and work that I do in the higher education space, and I've worked inside higher education as a head of marketing and multiple institutions. And about a year and a half ago, I got a phone call from some guy I'd never met, Dr. Joe Salustio, who is now a senior vice president at Lindenwood University. And he told me about this podcast that he and his co-founder, Elvin Freitas, had started a higher ed podcast called the Ed Up Experience Podcast. And it took off like wildfire in a way they did not expect it to. They launched it in January 2020, having no idea they were about to get hit with a pandemic. And they started bringing people on for really candid conversations about what's happening in colleges and universities and in vocational schools and training and development programs, all post-secondary education. And quite by happenstance, they ended up kind of chronicling how higher education leaders responded to the pandemic. And they talked to, by the time they called me, they had talked to over 100 college and university presidents on their show, in addition to lots of other leaders, educational technology and other spaces within higher ed. And they said to me, these presidents, these college and university presidents are brilliant. And the things they have told us would blow your mind. And there's a book in there. And I just happen to own a collaborative publishing company as well as an offshoot of our communications company that's about 20 years old. And I said, so you're interested in us publishing your book? And and I said, book. And my background was in higher ed, to higher ed, and I just happened to own a publishing company because I'm a marketer by trade. He deemed me the purple unicorn. He says, you are exactly what we were looking for and didn't know we were looking for. Somebody who could, you could co-author this book with us and help us promote it and make sure that it gets published and done well. And so we've spent the last year and a half doing that and listening to, we ultimately used 125 college and university president interviews for the book, and then did a whole bunch more proprietary sort of research, online survey research and whatnot, and got a finger on the pulse of where higher education has been, where it is now, and where it's headed, and had a very, very candid conversation about that. So the book just came out 3 weeks ago. Commencement.
And the book is called Commencement, and I love the cover design.
Thank you.
A new era in higher education. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you packed a lot in there. Thank you for giving us this sort of groundwork of where we are. Clearly, this is part of the importance of having a good book launch for you is also that you invited so many, I mean, I'm going to say very, very important and busy people.
Right. Right.
Who have something to contribute. They shared some things in the book. This book also has the potential to have a real impact on the entire sector.
Yes.
And so this, some people publish a book and they're happy if they sell 100 copies. You're like, no. Like, this has got to be done well. And so the virtual book launch party is sort of an isolated event, but as we started talking about it, it actually became the kickoff to a much bigger ongoing community building kind of program. When you first thought about reaching out to me, how did that even happen that you realized I could offer you something? I feel like you and I were having some sort of back and forth about something
Yeah.
unrelated, and you were like,
It
"Wait."
was totally unrelated. Yeah. So for backstory, so Robbie and I met at the National Speakers Association conference in 2018. That last book that I had written was up for pre-order, and I was speaking at that conference. And Robbie and I met through mutual friends, and ended up all having dinner together. And we're sort of
Shout out to
instant.
Kathy Fayok, of
Yeah,
course.
exactly. And so like we were
Yeah.
like instant buddies, and there were cocktails, and there was fun, and there was laughter, and some maybe some ludicrous moments, who knows. Um and we've kept in touch ever since, and I've come to some of your your webinars, and kept in touch on social. And no, Robbie is an amazing connector and an authentic one at that. And I had just had the death of somebody I really cared about in my life just very recently. And I had talked about it on Facebook, and Robbie mailed me a card
Oh,
to
that's
say,
sweet.
like, I'm just so damn sorry. Right. And it
Mhm,
was such an authentic message. And
mhm.
it was one of the only, I think it was the only sympathy card I got around that death. And it was from you.
Wow.
And I thought, gosh, you're just such a great human being. I reached out to Robbie and sent him an email and just said, thank you. Like, that was really important to me. And I know you're busy, and I know you don't know me that well. And I can't believe you did that. And thank you. And then after I sent the email and you wrote me back something lovely and sweet, and we were both headed off to the rest of our day, I realized I have this huge event that I need to plan coming up, and like nobody could do this better than Robbie. And I have no, excuse me, no ego around that. I've done a ton of event planning in my day. As a head of marketing, I've done huge events. Um, and I knew that I could not be the person sort of on stage and be the star of this event and also run it. I've tried to do that when I had a wedding. When I got married, I didn't have a wedding planner, and that was a huge mistake. And I knew that being standing next to my co-author and our contributor for this event, we couldn't possibly run it well. And so going into it, I was actually really first thinking, I don't know how to do breakout rooms. I don't know the tech. I don't know how to, I don't want to look like I'm stumbling all over the place and screw things up. And so that's when I first reached out to you.
Right.
And then it all sort of opened wide up into the fact that you're really an event strategist, an event designer, and you could help me create in my head the right event so that we could create a plan so that we could have an amazing event coming up here in a few days. And so, yeah, you're sort of my purple unicorn. I thought I knew what I was buying when I hired you, and I got so much more.
I actually had forgotten about the card,
Yeah,
because thank you for sharing that. It feels like a very personal thing to bring up in
yeah,
the middle of a live. And I have made an effort. I always wanted to be the person who was known for sending cards, and for years I couldn't get it done. I would buy cards, I'd have stamps. I just could not do it.
right.
And I finally sort of cracked the code on how to make sure that when I have the idea, I take action on it. And you know, and it's like important to me. It's something that I want to strive to do. So if I see something happening on social, I don't just add my voice to a thread. I think about, either a card or a personal text or something. Like, what else can I do to
Yeah,
really be there for somebody? And you don't do it because you're expecting anything.
right. Well, that's what I loved about it, right? So
Yeah.
I think we all kind of know that your financial planner or your car dealer or your insurance broker, or the people who send you the first Christmas card of the season, right? Like, one, they've got it really very automated, and two, they're doing it to put themselves in front of you to remind you, like, hey, do you need new insurance? Or like, and it's kind of in a salesy way, and your personality and it was branded, Hills Industries, or like, it wasn't like, and it wasn't like, oh, by the way, if I can help you, and hire me. It was from you. It was from the heart. And actually, I think it arrived before the funeral. And so it just meant a lot to me. And I thought about that when I reached back out to you after saying thank you. And then I thought, wait, this was the universe giving me a really great excuse to talk to Robbie during a really busy and difficult moment in my
Yeah.
life. And maybe the universe is going, knock, knock, like, he would be really helpful to you professionally right now. And so I know you weren't doing it for lead gen, but,
Yeah.
win-win that it worked out that way. So,
Yeah. I'm glad you're bringing it up in the sense that I feel like people listening in, like, if this is who you are in the world, it sometimes does lead to direct business, but a lot of times it's
Oh, sure.
goodwill you're putting in the world. And
Yeah.
like hopefully it comes back in some form or fashion when you need
Yeah.
that.
Good karma.
Um, so but your initial idea was you're hiring someone to handle pressing the buttons,
Yeah, pure producer. Like
pure
as to
tech.
yeah, that's what a pure like I don't know. I mean, I know just enough about Zoom to be dangerous um
Mm,
and I do typically use focus groups is kind of what I run.
right.
And I thought, well, I don't know how to do this. And so in my mind, incidentally, as an author, I've had a lot of face-to-face events for my previous book and in my mind, when I first thought about doing an online event, it felt to me like a consolation prize for a real event, right? Um, and then somebody had said to me, this was prior to me reaching out to you, somebody had said to me, well, Kate, you interviewed 125 college and university presidents. The author of the foreword, Francisco Marmolejo, is the higher education president at the Qatar Foundation, right? So we've had people
Wow,
all
not
over the
nearby.
world, not nearby. GCAS College in Dublin, their president was interviewed. So even if we had giant budget and we planned way in advance and told people to save the date like it was a wedding and planned a big face-to-face event in Chicago or somewhere that felt like sort of the middle of the US or something, um, we would still have very few people able to jump on an airplane and come out for this. And so this book release really is sort of purpose built for being virtual because this is a great opportunity for us to put. I mean, how often do you think several dozen college and university presidents all get together? I mean, they do belong to a lot of the same associations, but that's difficult to put them all in a room at the same time. They have really busy jobs.
Yeah.
And so we thought this has got to be virtual. And then I realized this has got to be great. And so I knew you could make me better than what I was planning. I had no idea that you could help us. I thought you would help us evolve what we were thinking about. And really what you have done is help us revolutionize our whole approach to this event. And now it's shaping up to be something that we're super excited about. And at last check, we're closing in, I think, on 275 RSVPs, and we still have like 4 days left to promote. So I think we'll end up with over 300 RSVPs. Yeah.
That's a profound effort to get that many people signed up for something. So you really do know marketing. I mean, you clearly know that
Yeah, I
side.
really wish I could take credit for it. I think this was a book. At the end of the day, I've always told people it's really sometimes very easy to market something that the marketplace is
Ready
clamoring
for.
for and is ready for.
Mhm.
And also, we had so many stakeholders, right? All the
Right,
people who are quoted
exactly.
in this book, they're excited to be in the book. And some people are mentioned like a dozen times. This is no skinny book, by the way.
Yeah.
It's 558 pages long. It weighs 1 pound, 13.20 ounces.
Uh-huh.
And so, it's a juicy book, but it's beautifully designed and very visual. And so a lot of people, the thing we know that is true is that people will help support what they help create.
Yes.
And so many people's voices are in this book and it's their book too. And so they've been great. I wish I could tell you we had a really brilliant marketing plan. We've got PR people and
Yeah.
whatnot working on all this stuff. But honestly, we were talking about the book and we had the platform, the EdUp Experience podcast. We were talking about it as we were writing
Yes.
and promoting it. And so we had the podcast has had 250,000 downloads, and so we're in a really great position to talk about it. So when we told
So
people it's out, it was a hit immediately.
the book's coming out. You know you have this event. You know you have these, very important, busy people who are gonna set aside some time to come. So you want the event to have some sort of impact. One of the earliest things I asked you to do as a bit of homework was to think about purpose first design. And you took
Yeah,
this very seriously
it did.
and sent me a long email with your wish list of the objectives. So
Yeah,
I said to you, think about how are people feeling, thinking, and doing things as they come in to the event?
yeah,
And how would you want them to shift that,
yeah,
feel something differently, think
yeah.
something differently, and or do something differently? And so you came up with this pretty long wish list and you sort of said to me cheekily, "I know I'm asking for a lot. Can I do all these things?"
It was a tall order. Yeah. And to be fair, if you had not given me homework, I mean, my objectives would have been even broader. One of the things I've loved for somebody who's never hired a virtual event designer and has never hired you, I think that what have really loved about working with you is that, one, you put me through these thought exercises to make that I will measure this better to achieve really generous and fair with me. So on one hand, like it's almost sort of like I feel like you allow me to sort of drive like a go-kart, and that I'm allowed to go pretty darn fast and be me and crazy and decorate the car however I want or whatever. But you've also put these like guardrails in place. Right. And so like if I start to like veer too far afield from our a sort of a goal, you're like get back into the middle of the road. And I love that when I say, well, I want to do this and this and this and this and this, and you say, okay, let's talk about that. And you've asked me difficult questions about if we could only accomplish one of these three things, which one is the most important? And the other thing
Mhm.
that you've really, really helped me do is to understand best practices around what works on an online format. So I'll say, well, when I've done face to face book launches, I've done this and this was really successful. And you've been able to say, here's how you can make that work online. Or you'll say, oh, that's really cool. It doesn't really work that well online. So let's talk about a different way to get to that goal that you're trying to achieve. So that's been incredibly helpful to me. And the big aha for me that I think we had at one of our last meetings that I had was I was trying to I think I'm feeling so grateful that 300 people are willing to come to my virtual event 5 days before Christmas. And while they're, headed off for a holiday break, colleges and universities pretty much shut down for a couple of weeks. And I was thinking, I've got them. So I have to I might never get these 300 people together ever again. And you were able to say to me, yeah, but you will and you can. And so, how do we make this be an event that is the things we want it to be? In our case, a celebration of the book's release and what it means for changing the trajectory of the higher education sector, and an opportunity to celebrate the people who are involved, but also an opportunity to bring those voices to life. So we have a keynote speaker, the president of Motlow State Community College, and then we have other people speaking, in big positions in higher education at the event. And you had said we can tease and introduce ideas in this event and then follow up and then invite people into other kinds of events, in January, in April. And what does it look like if these 300 people don't get together just once, but we get together a few times a year? What if Joe and Kate and Elvin, having written a book based on a podcast, takes this community and makes it even more engaged and more tightly knit together? And that's been really exciting for me. So instead of making the event bigger, we've made the possibilities bigger, and the event is just the kickoff.
Gosh, this makes me like really excited for you
Yeah, it's going to be
because
epic.
when you're trying to cram everything into 75 minutes, which is how long your event is,
Yeah,
then it can feel very rushed. You don't really actually hit the mark for anything because
right.
everything's moving at a certain pace. No one can absorb it. And I'm really interested in participant experience. So
Yeah,
it's like, well, how will this be from the participant's point of view? And even, I mean, even my like I suggested you do a fireside chat,
yeah,
and that's you with two people or someone interviewing two people. And just in case you asked three people just to make sure you had a backup.
yeah.
And then all of them said yes and committed. So I said, well, now we have a panel. And then I said, well, what is the purpose of this panel? How long is it? In the end, we decided it's going to be a series of 3 5-minute interviews, like
Yeah,
quick, and that
right.
we're going to work with each speaker to develop specifically a question for them
Yeah.
that really brings to life something that they
And they're
specifically
loving
can
this.
contribute.
They're loving this, by the way. So I'm waiting on yeses from two of them. And one of the commitments we received this morning. So it's a solid commitment, so I can say it here. So Dr. Mike Barger, who teaches, I believe, the most popular course in the MBA program at the Ross School of Business at University of Michigan. He teaches a high stakes leadership course, and he is just sort of a rock star. He's an amazing guy. He understands every kind of teaching and education you might imagine. We call higher education higher because we think it's highfalutin and important, but he has done the highest kind of education in that he was the chief flight instructor at the Navy's Top Gun fighter pilot school, and then went on to co-found JetBlue Airways, and built out their training program for their pilots and built JetBlue University, went on to go be the COO at CorpU, and is now at University of Michigan. And he and I had a great conversation this morning where I explained the format and how his part fits into the event. And I said, let's talk about what question you want us to ask you. And so we're having fun, right, around sort of developing that great question and going back and forth and making sure that's just perfect. So the planning of this event, while it's become sort of bigger than I intended, has really actually taken us even closer to our stakeholders and really brought them into this, where we handle the sticky stuff. They just need to show up and be brilliant, which they could do, rolling out of bed.
Mhm.
And we're going to make this really fun for them. And we're just super excited. And by the way, the guest list is begetting the guest list, right?
Wow.
So
Yes.
people will say, "Ooh, looking for in higher." Some of the institutions applying to are coming to this event,
Yeah.
and I love the fact that you have helped me understand that this event is a kickoff for a bigger campaign. It's a kickoff for a bigger um, sort of revolution education, which makes sense. And it is not lost on me that the subtitle of our book is The Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education. And so we're not going to
Mhm.
solve it all, and we're not going to revolutionize it all in 2023 or 2024. Neither are all the conversations about this book going to be sort of a one and done in the next few weeks, right after the book comes out. So you've really helped me see the scope of what's possible, and to really recraft what I thought we were planning, which I'm very happy about.
Yeah, this is the strategic design piece of an event, and I'll be honest about something regarding Zoom production. When we first sort of all went virtual, sort of poked around within the National Speakers Association community, and I
Yeah,
heard from many people that Zoom producers, a term I had never heard before, charge $250 to $300 an hour, and I was like, oh, okay. I mean, sounds like a starting place.
sounds good. Yeah,
And I now charge $600 an hour. And so what is the difference? Strategy,
yeah,
design,
yeah,
right? Coaching people through this question, like helping you realize that it's part of a bigger picture. It's not just the execution, it's not the production, it's the training speakers, it's helping them
yeah,
look good, sound good. But it's also, I'm not the content expert, but I'm asking questions to help you bring the right content in.
yeah.
And one of the pieces you knew coming in you really wanted to do was breakout rooms.
hmm
So in the end, how did we decide to use that feature?
Yeah, so we knew that there are risks and rewards for breakout rooms, and you've helped me sort of understand that. But I've also sort of seen them, and we knew we don't want to do. There are sometimes shy people, and this group that we have, right? It's a really esteemed group, but we're going to have everyone from presidents of elite institutions to um, junior members of the admissions team at a college and university who might be in the first few years of their career, to ed tech people, to my mom, right? And so we thought, well, we want to make sure that when we put people into groups that we don't want to have them exhausted and have them being like, oh, I hate this, like this makes me nervous, and then they're going to bounce out. So one, we thought very, very carefully about where in the sort of run of the show that they're going to be placed, and how to let people know what's going to be happening after the breakouts so that they want to come back from the breakout. So I think that we'll get some nice retention because of that. So we have some really kind of fun, juicy things happening afterward, and we'll tell them that. And we're also keeping them really focused. Like we have
Yeah,
that we're going to prep them for a really interesting, low stress but meaningful conversation about a commitment that we're going to ask them to make, to help be part of the beginning of a new era in higher education. And we're only going to put them in these rooms for 6 minutes,
right.
right? So so they're going to get a chance to meet a couple of people and have a quick interesting little conversation, and then they're right back with us. And so we knew that for this event, there's no way we can get all 300 people to know each other. But there are opportunities for everyone to have a voice, even if just only for a moment. And that was really important to us. So I like the way that we're kind of putting this together right now.
And then, so it's really action oriented because
Correct.
when we bring them back, we're going to ask them to, I have all these things binging in my house. I'll turn all that off. Okay. So we're going to ask everybody to, draft a message in chat, but not hit enter until I tell them to, about the specific next step then you're going to take in the next 2 weeks to move forward, whatever their
Right,
action steps are.
right. So I think a lot of people who work in higher ed like to think in terms of big ideas that they don't know how to execute on, right? Right.
Yeah.
And so a lot of things are sort of dead. I have a lot of ideas in higher ed are dead on arrival, right? And so it would be a big idea for somebody to say, I think we should kill the agrarian calendar and no longer have 2 big semesters with maybe summer, but a lot of people taking summer off. But what would it look like if our university did what a lot of progressive universities are doing, and that we start a new term every 5 weeks
Mhm.
continuously. And what does that look like? Or what does it look like if we stop using Carnegie units and we're not measuring credit hours? And how do you get from here to there? Well, getting from here to there with big ideas requires just one step. And you reminded me of that. And so again, while higher education may not be your expertise, but by the way, you do have a wife who has some expertise in there, and you lived on a college campus. And so you know how this works. Um, so we're going to be asking people if they have like a big idea. We're going to say, well, what's one step, what's the one thing you could do when you come back from break in
Yeah.
January? Like, do you need to have a meeting with the provost about X, Y, or Z? Do you need to um, rewrite something that's on the website? Because if you've positioned yourself as the college or university that does X, Y, and Z, but you want to be something else, how do you start maybe changing the narrative? Or so we're going to ask people, what's the one thing you can do that's
Hmm.
takes 20 minutes of your time, 1 hour of your time, that would make a difference. And a faculty member might say, that right now they've been super busy and they don't feel like they're connecting well enough with their students, and so they want to start offering more like open office hours. That would be a great commitment. That like students and put a new sign on
Yeah.
outside my kind of a thing. So we're going to be asking them a very action-based commitment.
And this goes back to purpose first design. And you knew that you wanted this group of people to not just be inspired, but to take some action. And you are right up against the holidays. And I had said you should send them an email the day after, like to everyone who registers, just like a thank you. Here's the replay in case you couldn't make it or couldn't stay for the whole thing. And here are two calls to action that we asked. It was like we're gonna at the very end really emphasize joining the book launch team, subscribing to the email list, to the podcast.
Mhm.
And we're going to say everyone was asked to make a commitment towards some action, and think about what you're going to do in the first 2 weeks of January. And then to have you then email everyone again at the end of this first 2 weeks of January as a little reminder of all
Yeah,
this and say, hey, hit reply and let us know what actions you've taken. And
yeah,
then you can also you might even grab a bunch of those responses, compile them, and then wait another month and
right.
share out those responses as another way to nudge as you're inviting
Yeah,
them to the next call you're going to have in February, right? So
right.
you can make this an ongoing, continuous conversation that originated on this podcast, then it
Yeah,
became the book. Now
yeah,
it's this one-time event that's actually going to kick off
yeah,
some rhythm of meetings, gatherings, community building activities.
yeah.
This is where a book has life for a very long time. I think this is a
Right.
long-term planning. Most people writing a book hit publish and they congratulate themselves as a job well done, and that's the end of it.
No, it's awful. And when I spoke at the conference where I met you, I gave a talk about what the difference between writing a book and being an author, and how to really sort of own it and let authorship change you, and let a book go out into the world to do the job that you
Right.
created it to do. And I said, and it was the one big uncomfortable laugh I got from the audience, is I said, the truth of the matter is that a lot of people release a book like they put out the garbage. They just want to get it out before it starts to stink. And it's true, right? Like, we all know, anybody who knows anybody who's written a book, especially like a difficult nonfiction book or a book that had a lot of research. So our book had a ton of research in it, but we did not want this to sound like someone's dissertation. So it's
Right.
it's funny and it's playful, and it's if you've ever met me and you read the book, you'll say, oh, it sounds like her, and the sidebars by Joe sound like Joe, and the sidebars by Elvin sound like Elvin. And it really is this very casual conversation. And um, but you're helping me create an event that helps us put our own money where our mouth is, because in this book we stand up and tell people we cannot keep talking. We've been talking for 200 years about where we want college. I mean, listen, how many sweatshirts do we all own with a college or university logo that says like founded in 1847, right? Like, and and we've been spending all this time saying like, you know, colleges and universities have to move faster. Higher education is too slow. Higher education is too much of an ivory tower. Um, but the only way it changes collectively is for it to change individually, for us each to step up in whatever influence we have in the industry
Hmm.
and say, I'm going to make a difference. And we just had an interview the other day with Dr. Bill Papicello, who's the one of the former presidents of the University of Phoenix. And he asked us a really tough question, right? It's a 156,000 word book, and he asks, what's the one most important message in the book? And I said, I think the most important message in the book is the last line of the book, and it's that the beginning of a new era in higher education begins with you.
Hmm.
That we can't read this book and do nothing. You must read this book and go do something about it.
Yeah.
Now that you know better, you have to do better. Now that we've gotten you thinking about why it's important for you to have a great relationship in higher ed with the superintendent of your local K-12 schools, go do that, right? So all the things, and so it's really about action. And again, we would have been I think we would have fallen short if we put this book out into the marketplace and said, good luck, we hope you enjoy it, we hope it inspires you, and we hope you find it useful, but we're not going to do anything to continue that conversation or to help you move forward. I do think that there's a lot of fear in higher education. There's a lot of silos in politics.
Sure.
I always say there's the only more political place you could work than higher education is actually in politics.
Mhm.
So it's hard, but if you see people in positions like yours, maybe you work in financial aid, or um, and you see people at other institutions moving forward and having bold conversations, and sort of killing sacred cows and creating new
Right.
things on behalf of students, so to improve access and flexibility and affordability for higher education. If other people are doing it too, it's not so scary for you to try it, and it's easier to say to your boss, hey, did you know that XYZ university is doing this? Like, can we talk about this? And we're helping them understand what XYZ University is doing. We sort of tell all the secrets, and now this event is helping us take it to the next level. So again, I'm not afraid to admit we really intended, when we planned this party, it was like, it's over, it's done. Like, I just want to have a party. And I think there is value in and of
Sure.
itself in celebrating, right? But when we started seeing what the guest list was looking like, and we thought, these are busy, important people, who are choosing, one, to support us, which we're blown away by, and two, who want to be part of this conversation, that this event is not just an excuse to pour some champagne, it's an event where we engage. And we thought this has to be way more toast than a group photo and a little A about behind
Right.
this in this book. It needs to be so much fun. And so now we've developed really phenomenal content, and I think people will find that it is 75 minutes very well spent.
So we're going to wrap up here, but I'm sure that you're going to go look for this on my Facebook, my personal LinkedIn, and on YouTube, on my YouTube, and write in the comments how people can find out about your book launch, because it's happening next week. So if you're in higher ed, or you know someone who's in higher ed, this would be a great gift. This would be a great thing to offer them, an invitation into this community. It is an ongoing community now. It's a very inspiring book. You've done so much work on it, you and your co-authors. Thank you for coming here today. I said to you
Thank
last
you.
night,
Yeah.
I said, I don't know if people understand like they don't know they need me. And
No,
she
they
said, they
don't.
don't
And
know.
that no, and what I said, and I said this to you last night, and I think it's good for people who are listening in to hear this. So, first of all, I've told a lot of people that we have this event and we have this really cool guy. He's our Zoom producer, and people have said, I didn't know that was a thing. And so that's one of the most common things we hear. But they're not saying, didn't know that was a thing and then changing the subject. They're saying, I didn't know that was a thing. Tell me more. So
Mhm.
that's really sort of exciting for you. And the other thing that I said last night, for those of you who are listening in and thinking, yeah, but I know how to do an event, and I do meetings in Zoom all the time, and I know how to do this. Like, why do I need somebody else and to help me strategize my event? I'm really smart. I'm strategic. First of all, just trust me. I literally have run events with budgets that would blow your mind and whatnot. I'm a marketer and an event manager, and the events team at organizations have answered to me. And I've thrown events with Business Week and whatnot. And there's a reason why event planning professionals hire event planning professionals. There's a reason why coaches have coaches, marketers have marketers. Um, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I said to you last night, this business that you're creating is going to just take off in such huge ways because right now you're creating and are a huge part of this sort of new product that people don't know how to buy. You're selling the MP3 player when everyone else is still using a Sony Discman and they don't understand what digital music is. That didn't mean anything to them, right? But now we look back on it and we're like, Sony Discman, are you kidding me? What was that, right? And so you know you are going to be so sought after, and I know that you already are, but when more people know, you're going to be so sought after. And frankly, I needed to hire you while I could get on your schedule because I have a funny feeling that there's going to be a hell of a waiting list to have you be strategizing events for people like me in the future. And so I'm just so effing proud of you, if I can say that on a live, because I think that you have just taken your brilliance and your skills and your ability to think and really sharp strategic ways and to step into other people's worlds and help them be their very best in front of an audience and underneath a ring light, which is not easy to do. I have confidence about next week's event that I would not possibly have if it weren't for you. And so I will sleep well the night before the event because I know it's going to be a big success and you're a huge part of it. So thank you.
Gosh, you make me blush. Thank you for all of that. That's real. I appreciate hearing it. It's helpful for me to have that reflection back. I've been scrolling here across the bottom of the screen. I've got a new book coming out, Break Out of Boredom, Low Tech Solutions for Highly Engaging Zoom Events. There's a launch team you can join. You start getting bonus content just for setting the intention that you want to write a review when it comes out. I want to help you get started right away with some things. And also on this post, you'll see that I've donated a 60-minute virtual speaker strategy session to the National Speakers Association Foundation auction. So you don't have to be a member of that organization to bid. If it sounds like something you'd like to do, you want to give a little money to a good cause, you can get on my calendar that way for an event you have coming up. So thank you again, Kate. And when this ends, go find these places and make sure you drop the link so people know
I
how to
sure will.
find your event that's coming up so they can actually experience. I mean, even if you just want to
Yeah.
experience a really awesome book
Right.
launch.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great thing too. I've told a few people I'm not offended at all if you're not that interested in my book, but you want to sort of see how we're doing our event. I'm like, log in. Like, the more the merrier, right? Like Robbie said, I could have like 350 people and it wouldn't phase him. So like, come
Yeah,
on in. So,
come on in.
come on
Awesome.
in.
Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks, Kate.
guys.